Welcome to the Manitoba Ag Days podcast, featuring speakers from our 2017 event. This podcast features Matt Reimer from Reimer Robotics, Kim Keller from Farm at Hand, Adam Reed from Versatile, Perry Gride from Honeybee Manufacturing Limited, and Steve Antea from CKLQ as they discuss 40 years of Ag Days success.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Steve Antea from CKLQ Radio, and I'm here to host the 40 years of Ag Days success and find a little bit about how Ag Days has affected various companies and individuals. I know you're looking at me saying, the guy in the suit doesn't look like he's ever been on a farm. He's got soft hands. He's probably never touched a piece of machinery in the wintertime. And I'd say that's true over the last 40 years. But nonetheless, my family does have some farming roots. My grandfather, Bill Bednarchuk, came to Canada in 1925 on a ship with a whole lot of other Ukrainians and started farming just a little bit south of Smeaton, Saskatchewan. Does anyone know where Smeaton is? No one knows where Smeaton is. Someone knows where Smeaton is. There you go. Someone who's been to Smeaton, maybe, or at least heard of it. It's the gateway to the north, people. You ought to try it sometime. Nonetheless, he married my grandmother, and my mother was their first child. Being the first child, basically, she was the rented mule of the farm. She had to work with the horses, which they had in those days. There was no tractors at that time. There were 3 other girls after her, and they all worked very hard as well. We heard the young lady just a little while ago talking about Mrs. McDonald, and I think that most of the ladies on farms in those days worked from sunup to sundown, 7 days a week, with basically no vacations. I don't think I could handle that kind of pace, but they did it, and they didn't complain about it. But nonetheless, my mother was very happy when technology improved and they finally got a tractor, which I think was a McCormick, with big steel wheels. And she was pulling a plow? Sure, it was a plow. And it got caught on a stump one day and flipped over and almost killed her. So if she hadn't been really good at ducking, I would not be here today. But nonetheless, she eventually moved away from the farm. But because my aunts and uncles and my grandparents were on the farm, that meant that every single summer we were sent to the farm to get out of my parents' hair, of course. But that basically meant we were the free labor on the farm. So we spent a lot of time doing things like, on chicken killing day, we were the people who had to chase after the chickens and present them to my aunt to have their heads cut off, which was about the only entertainment we have, watching the chickens running around the farmyard. We also had to ride on the stone boat. Has anyone ever ridden on a stone boat? I'm sure a few of you have ridden on a stone boat. So this basically means being pulled behind the tractor, and every time you saw a rock in the field, you have to jump off the tractor, pick up the rock, throw it in the stone boat, and you went like this for, well, we were hoping for about an hour, but apparently you do it all day long until you get all the stones in whatever section of land that you're trying to clean up. And then, at the end of the day, of course, you just don't get off the stone boat and go have a beer. Well, I was 10, so I don't think I would have had a beer. But then what happens is you have to go to the place where they're dumping all the stones, usually a gully or a piece of unworkable land where the stones will all be piled up. Now, you would think that was the worst job on the farm, but no, cleaning out the pig pen was the worst job on the farm, at least when you're 10. Because number one, it smells really bad. Number two, it's very slippery, and you fall a lot. So by the end of the day, when it was pig pen cleaning day, we either needed a bath or a shower, which was in short supply on the farm. So anyway, that's my farming credentials. My radio credentials are a little bit different. I've been in radio for something like 40 years, and at CKLQ for over 30 years. And we've been a part of Ag Days since the days when it was the Weed Fair, and some of you probably remember the Weed Fair, I'm guessing. I think it was held in what's now the Myers-Norris Penny Hall, at the time the Convention Hall. That was it. And that was, I think in 1978 was when they had the first Weed Fair, and we've been at every one of them. We've been sponsors, we've done broadcasts, we've done live remotes, and technology has changed a lot, just like it has on the farm. I mean, You know, these days farmers can, well, not exactly put their feet up, but with GPS and everything else, farming is a little bit easier, but then farms are a whole lot bigger than they were even 40 years ago. So we used to be wired into a wall and go get our sponsors and bring them to the microphone and put them on the air. Now we just run around with an iPhone or a similar device, and that's our broadcast thing. I mean, from right here, if I press the right button, I could be on the air at the radio station doing a live show, and it's easy. Technology has changed. It's made things a whole lot easier for everyone concerned. So in farming and in radio and with Ag Days, I mean, things just keep moving on. I mean, I think someone quoted yesterday, there are 16 acres of exhibits under the roof here at the Keystone Center. It's amazing how big this show has gone. I don't know how long the list, the waiting list for exhibitors is, but I'm guessing it's probably still around 100 people, even though this year they opened up the curling club. So it's moving on and upward, and we are proud to be part of it. We are a co-sponsor of the breakfast that we had this morning, the wonderful breakfast at the Canada Inns. We help sponsor the 50-50 draw and the trip to Las Vegas. We're giving away our calendars. We're going to have draws on the air. We are giving away sunflower seeds. Now, we don't want to confuse people. These are not the eaten kind of sunflower seeds. These are the planted kind of sunflower seeds. And you put them in your garden and have some beautiful sunflowers this coming summer. So if anyone wants to drop around to our booth, we are right inside the doors, literally where we used to stand 40 years ago at the Myers Norris Penny Hall. So we're very proud to be part of Ag Days all these years. It's great for us to get out, and I think I saw Wayne Kozak up there somewhere, who is one of our announcers. And it's great for us to be able to get out there and shake hands with all the farmers that we talk to on a regular basis through all sorts of programs on the air. So it's good to see you out, and we've got lots of very interesting speakers ahead of us. So that's my part of the show, just a little introduction to me and a little introduction to Ag Days. And right now we are going to call up one of our featured speakers, and that is Matt Reimer from Reimer Robotics. And Matt farms 2,500 acres with his dad in southwestern Manitoba. Recently, he created an autonomous tractor and used it to pull their grain cart during harvest. Matt has some engineering experience, but does not have a background in robotics or computer science. Apparently, he's just really smart. All the work done on the project is in the public domain and can be copied by anyone who is interested enough to create their own autonomous tractor. Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Reimer.
Hey, my name is Matt Reimer, and I do have an autonomous tractor on my farm. I think I'll start by showing you the video just so everyone knows how it all works. So the video is going to play behind me, I hope. And the reason for that is that there's always somebody in the combine. So a big part of the problem with autonomy is the safety aspect and the what happens, all the different what ifs, right? What if the tractor drives across the road? What if the tractor doesn't stop for another vehicle? What if the tractor, on and on and on. What if the tractor springs an oil leak? What if all of the what ifs and things that can go wrong? A lot of those things you can skirt around the issue, skirt around the problem by saying, there's always somebody in the combine watching this tractor. So I've thought that was a good idea for a long time, and I didn't really know where to start on the problem. How was I going to make this thing? And I stumbled across the Pixhawk, which is an autopilot from the RC world. And it is essentially open source, which means that you can modify it, all its components are known, and all of the blueprints are published online, both on the hardware and the software side. That's where the project started, and I had to advance my learning and tinker a little bit, and I kept working at it, but it took from about January to July to actually make a working prototype that we then used that harvest season from August to September. That was the first year. And the second year was this last year. We also used it just about all the way through harvest until my combine caught fire and burnt to the ground, and then I lost the electronics on the combine side. So that's my story in brief, and this is kind of a brief talk, and part of it is about Ag Days. And I thought it was a little funny that I was asked to speak about Ag Days and this invention and how it kind of all fits together, because to tell you the truth, I'm not a huge fan of Ag Days. Don't get me wrong, I love the exhibits, but as an introvert, there's way too many people here for me at once. And it makes my head spin a bit. So I love the exhibits, but all the people are just a little much for me. But I was thinking about Ag Days and how it's influenced my thinking and this invention, and how it continues to influence my farm and contribute to success on my farm and in my own life. And I had the honor this morning of going around and talking to all of the people that have new inventions this year. I'm a guest judge, and if you want an uplifting, inspiring experience, just go ahead and talk to all the people that have new inventions at Ag Days this year. Take a moment and think about, when you go there to look at the new invention, what did that inventor have to put into it? How much time and effort did he take? What kind of tools did he use? When you start asking those people questions like that, you start getting passionate answers in response about how they did it, why they did it, what problem it solves. And an Ag Days is always that experience, I think, for most farmers in winter. We come here in winter, we see all the different things, and we go home and we think about how they can improve our own farm. And I'm sure that it drives the exhibitors a little nuts, but if you're anything like me, you not only go around, you ask them, did you ever think about doing that? And it's this creative time in winter, right, when we as farmers get to be creative and think about what we want to make on our farm next year. And the other great thing about Ag Days is the marketing group that I'm a part of in my hometown. I already know we have a meeting every week to talk about farm issues, and next week's meeting will be a reflection on Ag Days. So it's everybody's responsibility in the club to go to Ag Days, find something interesting, and bring it back. And so this is where a whole host of good ideas come from, and it's one of the things that keeps us thinking and going in winter. So I have to thank Ag Days for that, and for also all the publicity that I got last year with the new invention. It's kind of catapulted the autonomous tractor, and the open source part of it for me has taken me all over the world to speak to farmers all over the place, and it's been a really great experience, and I'm very grateful for that. So that's, I think, the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Well, that was Matt Reimer. You know, Google spends billions of dollars to get a car that drives itself, and there he is in southwestern Manitoba getting a tractor that drives itself. Who needs Google, really, when you think about it? Matt Reimer, thank you very much. Okay, we've got our next speaker coming up, and that is Kim Keller from Farm at Hand. Kim co-founded Farm at Hand in 2012, and later returned to the family farm in 2016 following the sale of Farm at Hand. She has a passion for shaking up the industry and helping each farmer she meets in whatever way she can, from data management to bringing awareness to the toll farming can take on one's mental health. She's a proud woman in ag and is always striving to help change ag for the better by supporting and empowering other women. Kim Keller.
I'm Kim Keller. I am the former co-founder of Farm at Hand, and I'm also a farmer from Groundwood, Saskatchewan. It actually feels a little bit surreal to be here today. Yesterday, a Facebook memory popped up, and 4 years ago, I was at this very same show trying to convince farmers that they needed to use apps on their farm, and Farm at Hand was one of those. Now here I am 4 years later, talking about my experience and my successes with Farm at Hand. So when I think about the success that I've had with Farm at Hand, I really think about two things in particular. One, obviously, being the fact that we built a company from simply an idea. And the second thing is how we built that company. So Farm at Hand was never actually meant to be a business. It was simply meant just to be a solution for my family's farm in Groundwood, Saskatchewan. I ended up creating Farm at Hand with a friend of mine, and that friend's name is Himanshu Singh. And I just happened to meet him out one night when I was out with one of my friends, and a bunch of his mutual friends came out. He knew nothing about agriculture, and I'm pretty sure at that time he didn't even know the difference between a combine and a tractor. He asked me a ton of questions, and one day he eventually asked me the question which led to the creation of Farm at Hand. And that question was, well, how do you guys keep track of everything that's in your bins? And I told him, well, it's a great big piece of white paper on the kitchen island, and all the bins are drawn out on it. And every time you're out in the bin yard and you put something into a bin or take something out, you gotta run in the house, erase it, and rewrite it. He couldn't believe it. He actually thought I was lying. And he did a Google search, and he looked on the App Store and realized there actually wasn't a better solution out there. He was in university at the time, and he had also started a very small software development company. And he said, you know, I can help you build something for your farm. I knew nothing about apps, I knew nothing about technology, and I thought, why not? We set out to build a vineyard management app. And what we ended up building was an app that allowed farmers to manage everything that they were doing in their field, what was in their bins, their contracts, their deliveries, and also their equipment. On April 26th of 2012, we actually put Farm at Hand onto the App Store. And within a few months, we had 500 downloads. And that was about 490 more than we ever expected. And we paused and we thought, maybe we're onto something here. Maybe other farmers are looking for that same solution. But we continued on. And shortly after that, we received a call from a marketing advisor. And he said, listen, guys, I have a bunch of my farmers using Farm at Hand. Is there any way that I can use it to communicate with them? And that's when we realized that we were onto something big, and we had an opportunity to change agriculture as it was that day. 2013 was a really big year for us, and it all started at Ag Days. It was our very first farm show that we ever attended, and we were lucky enough to be a part of the New Inventors, and we were actually also lucky enough to speak at that show. Those 3 days at Ag Days changed the course of Farm at Hand forever. We went from being, at that time, 2 kids with an app, to a legitimate company that was providing a much needed solution to farmers. That very same year in 2013, we actually were asked to come and attend a tech accelerator in Vancouver. And for anyone that doesn't know, an accelerator is basically a business boot camp. And that accelerator was 3 months. So Himanshu and I packed up my truck, moved to Vancouver in the fall of 2013 to attend that accelerator. That 3 months turned into 3 years. That 3 years is one of the craziest times in my life, filled with so much opportunity and change. In that 3 years, we grew a team, we raised investment, we reached farmers all over the world, and we ended up selling Farm at Hand to another Canadian company. Throughout all that craziness and all that growth, there was one thing, and it's probably the thing I'm most proud of about Farm at Hand, that stayed constant. and that was that we kept the farmer at the center of our company. Everything we did, every decision we made, had the farmer in the center of it. When we started this, we made 2 promises to our farmers, and that was one, that the program they use today would always be free, and secondly, that they owned their data. And I truly believe that being farmer-centric was actually what led us to be successful then and continue to be successful today. I've actually since left Farm at Hand, and I've returned to my family's farm, where I farm full-time. And I think, like every farmer out there, farming runs in my blood, and as does inventing and creating. Every day I look at our farm and I think, how can I make this better? What problem can I solve today? And I actually think I get that from my dad. So when I walk around this show, and I've walked around it for the last 4 years, I very quickly realized that Ag Days puts small companies, small startups, in front of their target audience and provides them with so much opportunity that they wouldn't otherwise get. Ag Days was a turning point for us 4 years ago, and I really hope that in 40 more years, I'm sitting in that audience listening to other companies that have come through and have had the same success as I have. Thank you.
And that was, of course, Kim Keller from Farm at Hand. It's very evident that Ag Days is very important for networking, not only among farmers, but among manufacturers, developers of apps, and people who want to have their tractors drive themselves. So networking is a very important part of this experience, I think, for a lot of people. Let's move on to our next presenter, and that will be Perry Gride of Honeybee Manufacturing. They don't tell me much about Perry. Apparently, he's the territory manager for Honeybee Manufacturing. That's all I've got, Perry. You're up.
That's more than I knew. Hello, everybody. Yeah, I just showed up for work yesterday, and they said I was doing a presentation today, so I hope it works out for me. The story I'm going to tell you is about a journey of 2 brothers, and sort of how I think common theme that some of the other speakers have mentioned is just the need for innovative speaking on the farm sector, and it'll go through a little bit of their journey. I come from Saskatchewan, and if you know anything about Saskatchewan, the winters there can be very long and cold, and many of the farmers are very innovative thinkers. And through that, Honeybee Manufacturing came into being. It's a small manufacturing company located in Frontier, Saskatchewan, the southwest corner of the province. Population of Frontier is 351 people, and employment at Honeybee is about 160. So it's a very important segment for that community there. Greg and Glenn Honey are the 2 brothers that are the owners of Honeybee, and their history goes back to about mid-1970s when both of them returned from school and decided to return to the family farm, and where they joined in and decided that there was some things they could do to improve the way farming was done in that area, and their first product was a rod weeder. It was just a rod weeder on a roller bearing that pulled behind a cultivator and helped with weed control in the fields. They'd built it for their own farm and found that there was others out there that wanted it, so they started to build it off their farm in Bracken, Saskatchewan. And so a year after that, they decided, hey, we better go into business with this. So Honeybee Manufacturing started in 1979. They had 8 employees working off their farm. One of the first things they did on their farm was they found they had a need for a higher powered tractor. And so in 1979, they decided to build their own 450 horsepower 2-wheel drive tractor to pull their 80-foot cultivator around. And with that, they found that worked well. So 1 year later, they decided they better build a second one. Out of their Quonset on the farm, they did that, and It was a few years after that I was actually an employee of a neighboring farm, and it caused lots of challenge of envy for me as I drove our small tractor around the field and watched this big unit go by pulling the 80-foot cultivator, and it looked like it was a lot of fun to run. Also that same year, there was a lot of swathing in that time of the wheat crops, and they decided that the 36-foot, 30-foot headers out there weren't big enough, so they decided to make their own self-propelled 75-foot swather that could either roll it all into one 75-foot swath or three separate 25-foot swaths. Mainly this stuff was built for their own farm, but they found that there was some interest, so they built a few of them to retail. They carried on with that, and then in 1984 they designed a front mount swather with a pull-behind unit that could be mounted on a tractor, 25-foot in front, 25-foot behind, that could lay a 50-foot swath or a separate 25. This product, there seemed to be a stronger demand for it in the marketplace, so they went into larger production with this unit. And that started to take off Honeybee to a little higher level where it became more of a focus over the farm. In 1989, they took that same 75-foot self-propelled swather they had built and decided to also turn it into a high-clearance sprayer. So what you see in the picture there, as a sprayer, could also be converted to run their 75-foot self-propelled swather. With the takeoff of the tractor mount, they decided that there was a need to move into a larger production facility, and so many of you might know the name Flexicoil. There was a Flexicoil manufacturing plant in Frontier that became vacant, and so Honeys purchased the plant and moved their production facilities into there in 1987. Through the 90s and through the 2000s, they developed grain belt header and swather units that were used on the mainstream combines out there. It's a John Deere swather in the picture there, and also signed a OEM agreement with Case New Holland to produce headers and swathers for their power units. Today, we're active in about 17 countries globally, and it's growing for us right now. And I look back on Manitoba Ag Days, and what is the value of these for a short line producer? And for us as a manufacturer, one of the key things is exposure out of it. It gives us an opportunity to talk face-to-face with the customers, understand what areas our product might have a fit for them, show them our product, but it also offers an opportunity for us to touch base with our existing customers out there and find out what they're happy about with, what they're not happy about with. There was a mention about driving exhibitors crazy by asking them what ifs, and I think that's something we appreciate, that anytime somebody can throw some challenges at us, it gives us an opportunity to be innovative with it. And as a small company, it allows us to change direction quite quickly. In 2014, we launched a new flex table that has a real good fit for the soybean market. In my unbiased opinion, it's the best product on the market today. And through that, we had been attending Ag Days for quite a few years and watching what was going on with the new product competition. We thought, well, that might be a good opportunity for us to get some advertising out of it, so we decided to enter the competition, and we were fortunate enough that year to win it. And I'm a little bit old school, so I guess I sort of understood the value of winning that. It was nice to have the display set up for the show to say we were in the competition, as it tended to draw people in, and then after we won it, we got people coming around the next day looking at the product closer. And so for me, I was quite excited about that, but what really hit home with me was the power of the social media now and just the effects of how that information can get out there so fast. One key example of that is we set up a new territory manager down in Illinois in the US, and He was trying to get into shows we hadn't been in before. They got limited amount of people they live in there for displays. And simply because we were recognized as the best new product at Manitoba Ag Days, that allowed him to open that door to get into that show. And just through Twitter, the flow of that, it's actually quite amazing what can happen with the social media these days. So just thank you to Manitoba Ag Days for the opportunity to participate in that, and just the value of the mileage we got out of it. And so I guess I'll leave you with that, and just the thought that don't be afraid to be innovative, and hopefully it'll help you to find the road to success. Thank you.
And that's Barry Gride from Honeybee Manufacturing. And it just occurs to me that there's some very creative and innovative people in this building. We're seeing a few of them, but nonetheless, when someone decides, I need a bigger tractor, let's build one. That's just crazy. I mean, I can barely figure out how to program my remote. And they're just, let's build a bigger tractor, let's make ourselves an app, let's have a tractor that drives itself. I don't know, but this next fellow, I think you have a bit of an act to follow here. So let's call up our next speaker, Greg Blaszczuk from Seed Hawk. Greg is the Vice President of Sales and Customer Service for Seed Hawk, and let's see what great things they're doing. Absolutely.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me now? It's a beautiful day in Manitoba. If I sound a little strange, it's because I'm from Pennsylvania and we talk funny down there. So I'll try to speak clearly so that you can understand me, but happy to be here, and it is a beautiful day in Manitoba. My name is Greg Blaszczuk. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Customer Service for Seed Hawk, and we were invited to share our success story with you here today on the celebration of the 40th anniversary of Manitoba Ag Days. Actually, it's a bit of a celebration for us this year as well. It's our 25th anniversary of being in business, so we're celebrating that as well. The company started in 1992 with Pat Bugeaud and his business partners. If you look at the picture, kind of fuzzy, but Pat is on the far left. And you can tell by the look of the picture, it's a bit dated. The way the company started actually was Pat, again, and his business partners had a need for a zero-till seeding system. And not just a zero-till seeding system, but one that would precisely place seed and fertilizer with relation to each other. And at the time, there wasn't anything on the market that really served their need. So, like many of the stories you've heard here today, they developed an opener design on their own that did just what they were looking to do. This is the original site for their operations, and if you look at it, it looks a lot like most of the farms you might see across, I would say, the western part of the country where I travel mostly, and really many parts of the world where I get to travel and see a lot of the farmers and innovations that we've heard, similar innovations from what we've heard today. And I make that comment because I think it's important to know that Seed Hawk has its roots, its history, its past is based in agriculture. It's based in a farming community, and it was born out of farmers like yourself and like our customers that have special needs and are truly innovative. This picture, another key to our success, I would say, is the ability to demonstrate. We can talk about features and benefits and what something may or may not do, but the true test, in my mind, has always been a successful demonstration. And this picture is a picture of an early field days, a field demo, and we did many of these back in those early days, and that was one of the key successes in being able to grow the company and grow it as quickly as we did over a period of 25 years. And so those demonstrations, along with just word of mouth, and you sell one, you sell two, you sell three, and those start to generate a lot of interest because it worked. And that's another key. it worked. You can demonstrate and show that what you're trying to do is really effective. That emergence, that fast, even emergence that you get from our openers is something that's easily witnessed just through a simple demonstration. And it catches on, and it catches on quickly. This picture that you're looking at now is actually a bit of a, I'd call it a time lapse over a number of years. That upper left corner was the first industrial type building that was placed on the property. So that is the original property minus the other smaller buildings that were there. And just the demand of the product necessitated the need to build a more industrial building to house the growing demand and growing production for the product. And you can see it, how it developed throughout the years, going clockwise through the pictures, to the point we're largely at today. About 100,000 square feet under roof, a little over 200 employees. And by the way, we are in, the North American operations is in Langbank, Saskatchewan. So a small community, and an employer of a size of 200 or more is substantial for the area, and we're proud to be able to offer those jobs in such a small community. That's not the end of the story. This might look like a digression, but it's actually the next chapter. You'll notice up there, it says Vaterstad, and Vaterstad is actually the name of a small town in Sweden. And the two people that you see there, similar to Pat and his original partners, the two people you see are Rune and Sue Stark. Rune, 1962, similarly had a problem or a need on the farm. Again, farmer-generated ideas, farmer needs, farmer innovation, which is something that we like to instill in our culture's innovation. Rune needed a little bit different problem, needed a way to to work and till particularly difficult soil that they have there in that part of Sweden. And surprisingly, you hear some of the really technological innovations that we've heard about today. These sound quite simple, but they are effective. What Rune and Sue had developed, is just a rigid tine harrow. But the key was there wasn't anything else available at the time. And similar to other stories that we've heard, initially this was just for their own use. But again, the neighboring farmer would see this and say, that's kind of neat, could you make me one? And the next person, could you make me one? Actually, they operated out of that building for about 5 years until they outgrew the operations there. And similar to Seed Hawk, you can see the progression clockwise through the pictures over the course of 50 years or so. Continuous growth, and far beyond just the rigid tine harrow that they started with. If you'd have a chance to stop by our booth or even visit our website, you would see the broad spectrum of products that we currently offer, and then much of the innovation that has developed out of just this one simple rigid tine harrow. But this is the key. It's hard to see from this picture. This is the factory in Vaterstad, Sweden. I've been there several times, and it's just amazing. When you go there, the level of automation and processes and control, quality control that's in place, it's really impressive for such really what I still consider a small family-owned business. It would rival any of the larger manufacturing facilities that you might have ever visited. One of the key features of being in partnership with Vaterstad, and I should back up, by the way, and say in 2007, the Stark family made an investment into Seed Hawk, which subsequently, years later, they did purchase Seed Hawk in total, so we are wholly owned by Vaterstad now. But that's a benefit, because what I'd like to show on this chart is really we're global. In the past, we mostly operated in Western Canada, a little bit of the northern plains of the US, and some Australia. But the partnership or the ownership with Vaterstad has opened us up to really being truly a global player. And one of the key things for me anyway, one of the key benefits of that is you're able to see all of the different ideas the different practices that are being implemented across the globe, and you can take those and use them potentially for the next innovation. And so a lot of these, again, these ideas that we've heard today, there's just so many out there that really are just waiting for an opportunity to apply to our practices here in Canada. Okay, back to Seed Hawk. Seed Hawk vision, just like the slide says, become a leader in our markets, developing products that have a benefit to growers, that provide a value. If you're not providing a value, then it's really questionable why you would even continue or operate. And the way we do that is to provide profitable seeding, planting, and tillage solutions through innovation. As I mentioned earlier, innovation is really a key for us. It's one of the key parts of our culture that we like to always keep instilled and keep in the forefront of our minds. Some of the innovations that, if you're not aware with Seed Hawk, obviously the patented precision openers that I talked about earlier. I think that's what many people are familiar with Seed Hawk, with our openers. But a little bit more recently is sectional control technology, and we'll see a little bit more of that on one of the next slides. Even more recently, the Icon wireless control system, which is really neat. Now we're starting to get up into master level stuff with the apps and iPads and really recent technology. We'll see some more of that. Incorporating wireless blockage, and new for this spring, the Phoenix 3 meter, at least new in North America. I think I'll go through these relatively quickly because I probably couldn't do it the justice that it deserves. I would maybe suggest visiting our booth, or even simply going on to our website, seedhawkseeder.com, and there's some really good infographics that our partners and friends at AdFarm helped us pull together that show some animation and really go through a better explanation, more than what a slide can do. But in any case, that's close to the original opener, that design that we had in 1992. This is a sectional control technology that I spoke of just a while ago. And again, you kind of wonder, it's only in recent years that GPS has gotten to be really well accepted and fully implemented into the ag industry, certainly during my career anyway, and now you wonder how you do without it. So utilizing GPS, we have our sectional control technology that helps reduce inputs and just improve the efficiency of your land, and it's so that you're a better steward of your land. The Icon wireless control. So much to talk about here, and again, and for the sake of time, I won't go into everything. There's much more available at our booth and online to research on this, but the really interesting part is basically our Icon wireless control is a wireless control system where, just imagine in your cab you have an iPad that you can buy at Walmart, download an app that some smart person has developed, and as simple as that, take that iPad out of your cab and be able to walk around your implement, adjusting, controlling, checking, monitoring, not getting up and down in the cab, back and forth, making an adjustment, having to go back out and check it. You take your iPad with you, and there's no strings attached. Wireless blockage, I think most of us are familiar. If you're familiar with seeding systems, you know you're familiar with wireless blockage. But again, the whole system ties together, and wirelessly, you're monitoring all of your runs, and you know whether you are applying fertilizer or seed or not. And it's just another control to make yourself more profitable, more efficient. The Phoenix 3 metering system. Again, just for the sake of time, I'll just mention a few things, but it's something you really need to watch the infographic on our website, because it looks like it's just a simple electric motor, but it's much more than that. Yes, it's durable, it's strong, but there's a lot of intricacies to it that that really deserve some more in-depth explanation, which I would encourage you to look at those on our website. And one of those is the housing for that motor. There's features of that housing that aren't clearly evident when you first look, but features that help seed flow, material flow, let's say fertilizer flow, into the meter so that you have smooth, even metering of the product, whatever it might be, throughout the rest of your seeding system. And then it's not to mention the durability that's built into it as well through stainless steel bearings and stainless steel lining. And again, we're getting into more detail here, but the variety of rollers and other attachments, let's say for the metering, for the rolling meter rollers, just providing a broad range of flexibility for your seeding system. And again, it is an innovation. We're talking about the 25 years of success of our company over time, and this is one of the latest innovations that we have to share that we're excited to talk about and launch this year. Last thing I'd like you to do is we'd like to invite you actually to the booth tomorrow at 11 o'clock. This is key, tomorrow at 11 o'clock. One of the things I mentioned earlier was the effectiveness of a demonstration, of a good demonstration. So along those same lines, for the second year now, we've offered a program or a contest where you could enter for a chance to win the free use of one of our seeding systems. And tomorrow at 11 o'clock at our booth in the Manitoba room, Steve Laycock will actually help us announce, from Team Laycock, will help us announce the winner of the grand prize, the free use of that seeding system. This year, a little bit different. We actually have 2 other prizes. The second being 20 bags of InVigor, right? Canola seed. And the third being a Garmin watch. Again, Steve Laycock, tomorrow, 11 o'clock, our booth. Hope to see you there. Stop by. We're manned there with 4 or 5 of some of our best field reps, so they can answer questions in far better detail than what I could for you. So thank you, and we'll see you there.
Thank you very much. Greg Blazczuk from SeedHawk. And we have one more participant to go here. If he's ready, he's got all the computer stuff solved. Everything is ready to go. I don't know, I have talked to Adam a few times before. I might be mistaken, but I think he has a brother named Big Roy. I'm not sure if it's his brother or not. But nonetheless, Adam Reed is from Versatile, and he is the marketing manager. Did you want the microphone too? I think I do. All right, here you go. Don't sing any songs when you're out there.
Make no promises whatsoever. Do you have a clicker? Wow, that is almost a miracle. I can't believe this is actually working. As Steve said, my name's Adam Reed. I'm the Director of Marketing for Buhler Industries, which is both Versatile and Farm King. And I've been with the company since 2006. I grew up on a farm about 45 minutes northwest of here. Actually, my parents are in the audience. It's a lot easier to speak to a crowd full of people than only a handful because I can keep looking right at them. But Versatile's got a rich manufacturing history in Canada. We were the first company to mass produce a four-wheel drive tractor back in 1966. And our claim to fame is that our friends that at that time built the lime green tractor, they were still building in a machine shed while we had an actual running production line. So the first year was 1966. You can see the D100 up there. And in that first year, founders Roy Robinson and Peter Paykosh of Versatile announced in their annual report that they built 28 gas-powered G100s and 77 D100 diesels. And that same year in that annual report, it's interesting to point out that they built 5,580 swathers, both self-propelled and pull-type. So if you think about 5,000 swathers coming out of that factory in Fort Garry. 1967 was the first year that Versatile offered a Cummins engine. That partnership now goes back, well, for 50 years this year. 1976, the 850 Series 2 came out. That went up to 360 horsepower. And in 1981, it was the introduction of the 1150. Now, that used a K19 Cummins engine. That had 470 horsepower. 1981 was the biggest year of production for Versatile. We built 3,400 four-wheel drives at the plant in Fort Garry in Winnipeg. And it's interesting to note, to put that into perspective, just how much farming has changed and how much larger some of the implements have got. 1981, we built 3,400, just Versatile. And last year, the entire industry in North America in 2006 only sold 3,100 four-wheel drive tractors. So that just shows how the industry's evolved. 1985 was the introduction of the 856, and in 1986, Versatile sold to Ford, which eventually became New Holland. And in 1993, the company introduced the 80 Series four-wheel drive tractor. And what's interesting to note in this is that it's the first time that Versatile offered a high-flow hydraulic system. Now pretty much all the tractors have that. And it's the first time that composite panels were used for the hood and the side shields. So fast forward a few years to the year 2000. 1999, Case IH and New Holland merged to form CNH Industrial, as we all know. And they had to divest of one of their factories. They had to either choose the Steiger plant in Fargo or the Versatile plant in Winnipeg. And they decided to divest of the Versatile plant in Winnipeg. So at that time, a businessman named John Bueller, who some of you may have heard of, Bueller Industries bought the factory. And to be honest, the general rumors in the industry was that this guy that really no one outside of Manitoba had heard of, that he'd be out of business in a year or two and that the major manufacturers didn't really need to worry about it. Well, sure enough, they started painting the tractors red, and they sold a lot of the 2000 series tractor. And then in 2005, actually introduced a new platform tractor, the high horsepower tractor, which went up to 535 horsepower, which was one of the largest at the time. And then in 2010, we introduced the 575, which at that time was the biggest tractor available in North America. And then once again, we continued to innovate, and we introduced the Delta Track back in 2013. So because I pulled this off at the last minute, I know what the next slide is, and it was supposed to be at the start, but that's me. That's me pulling off the Captain Morgan at age 12. I was a pioneer in that. But the interesting thing about Versatile was that we continued to persevere. And when I looked at the booth that we have out there today with Big Roy and with the new colors of Versatile, that was our booth back in 2006. That's when I started with the company. We had basically two tractors that we sold. We had a Genesis tractor that we essentially inherited from New Holland, and we had the high horsepower that we'd introduced a year earlier. So Ag Days has a bit of a special meaning for us, and actually when the organizers asked me to talk about the history of Versatile and Ag Days over the 40 years, I didn't really have the heart to tell them that in 1999, when Case and New Holland merged and they left the building at 1260 Clarence Avenue in Winnipeg, they took everything with them. They took all of our marketing photos, all of the marketing history, all of the prototype photos, all the photo library, everything was wiped out. So the recent history of Versatile starts when I started in 2006 and started taking pictures of these things. But the real turning point was 2008 for the company. We had been sold to Combine Factory Rosselmash in 2007. And so Ag Days was the first show that the new president came to. And he was not happy. So we got back to Winnipeg, end of January 2008. And I'm getting raked over the coals by this 6.5-foot tall Russian. And I finally said to him, well, what do you want? Like, why are you so upset? And he said, well, you had the tractors in the booth, but they were at the back. They should be at the front. That should be the first thing that people see. I said, well, what do you want? And he said, we want to be a tractor company. And I said, well, that's easy. You've got all the ingredients. You're just not using it. So in 2008, in October, to the dealers, we introduced the new Versatile. And of course, then here, the following year, we showed it for the first time here at Ag Days. And it has been a heck of a ride since then. The Versatile brand carried a lot of knowledge, not just locally, but around the world. And of course, this is our home market. But in 2008, even though we brought back the Versatile name, something felt like it was missing. And at that time, we actually did a mock-up version of a red and yellow Genesis and a red and yellow high horsepower four-wheel drive. And it was so ugly, it hurt my feelings. There was just no way that we could, in good conscience, produce a tractor that was that ugly. So then the 50th anniversary of Versatile rolls around, and we decided to do something a little bit different. And we did the legendary limited edition. We did 50 of these tractors, and it was unveiled last year here at Ag Days. And it was really the kickoff to the whole 50th anniversary party that we had last year. And that same tall Russian guy that had raked me over the coals in 2008 first saw that picture in fall of 2015, and he said, well, and I'll try to mimic his broken English, he says, to me, it's a little bit ugly. And I said, you know, you don't get it. Like, it's the history of Versatile. It's 50 years. The guys are going to love this. So he wasn't sold, even as it left the building on its way to Ag Days, he wasn't sold that this was going to be a hit. And then he walked into the show and saw the people that were, well, gathered around it. And for the first time, he said, it's okay. So with that, we then were able to evolve, and this year, for the 51st year and beyond, all Versatiles are going to be red, yellow, and black, as you can see here. And really, Ag Days has been a great show for us. The timing of it is really good. You know, unless the farmers are in Cancun or wherever, we always get a good turnout. And of course, this is home. This is the home for Versatile. So it's obviously a good show for us. And one of the things that they'd mentioned that I should talk about a little bit was kind of what Matt was talking about, and that's what's the future hold. And I think for Versatile, it's not going to be if or even when we get into autonomous tractors, it's going to be how. Because the entire essence of Versatile for 51 years has been built on reliability, simplicity, and the ease of service and maintenance. And when we look at what's available right now, a lot of it is it's not necessarily user-friendly, it's not necessarily intuitive, and I think you're probably quite a ways from actually seeing a Versatile displayed at a trade show without a cab. It's just not necessarily where our immediate short-term needs are. And very much like the founders of Versatile, Roy Robinson and Peter Paykosh wrote in that 1966 annual report, that the future for Versatile is simplicity, reliability, and ease of service and maintenance. With that, I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Adam. And that is it for our speakers for 40 years of Ag Days history. I want to thank all of our speakers, of course, Matt, Kim, Adam, Perry, and Greg. And don't go away, by the way. We do have a little present here for you, all our speakers, so don't run away on us. But it's very interesting, I think, that all the speakers kind of pointed out that Ag Days, even though it's being held in Brandon in the Keystone Center, is not so much a regional show, but almost an international show. The feedback they get from fellow entrepreneurs, they get from the farmers, they get from the producers, really goes into making a better product for all the producers out there. So I think that one way that Ag Days is important is that it's stretching and building the future of the industry. I thank you for coming out. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and let's look forward to another 40 great years of Ag Days. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you at Manitoba Ag Days 2018 from January 16th to 18th.